Dave Jones, it's blue-white breakdown time, Indiana week. We could talk about Ohio State. We're going to talk about the Phillies too, but I wanted to start with this, Dave. You asked James Franklin after the Ohio State game about his 1-9 record against Ohio State. You know, being a referendum on his time at Penn State. He preferred to talk just about that game that day, but he did answer it a little bit on Tuesday. He said it's fair game to talk about it. He does like to be judged on his entire body of work, but he said absolutely it's fair to look at that 1-9 record. Your thoughts?
Well, good for him. I don't know, man. The one time I really liked Franklin was after the 2018 game when he completely lost his mind.
Yeah, about the elite stuff and 1% better.
Yeah, because he lost control. He lost that constant control. I mean, honestly, could you believe that he started the press conference with, I don't know if we didn't see the two best teams in college football. At that point, I almost, if I'd had water, I would have done a spit take.
He was tough. He said defensively, Dave.
He said especially the defense.
Yes. Yeah. Because that was not one of the best offenses in the country we saw. Either side.
Or best prepared.
Right.
So I'm glad he finally came around and answered the question. He said, I believe he said he wished he'd answered it Saturday. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But just the fact that he began with the happy horse shit, on Saturday. I actually like the fact 5 years ago that he just blew a gasket.
He did blow a gasket.
Because it showed that, we all know they care, but really fans want to see that he acts like he's trying to earn his money, not that 9-3 every damn year earning what he's earning, $7 million a year, is good enough. And that is the implicit suggestion that, oh, well, this is a really good Ohio State team. He can't beat them. And this was a chance to beat them.
Yeah.
You would agree. This is the best chance. I think you said after the game, he'll never have a better chance to beat him. He might never beat him.
That's why I think when you look at this whole era, I think you could say, I would put this up as the most disappointing performance by a Penn State team during his time in State College, just because of the talent he had at his disposal and the quality of the Ohio State team Penn State was facing.
Yeah,
and it was bad.
I saw a bunch of imbeciles comments on our last podcast that acted like I was saying this team is the equal of Luke Fickell's team in 2011. No, I'm saying, no, because people hear what they want to hear and they're stupid. But it is the
like James Franklin in 2018. I like it.
It is the least impressive Ohio State team back until that one, starting with Urban Meyer's first team in 2012. Up until now. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, yes. I just did a quick Rolodex, but yes, I would agree with that.
I mean, they've had some impressive ball clubs. You looked around and there were almost no weaknesses. They had a couple of teams with leaky defenses. The team that lost 55-24 to Iowa, the team that lost 49-20 to Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not that, man. I mean, They have a better defense than that, but their offense is ordinary without Harrison out there and without a couple of real weapons that they could have had. I mean, they played by Ohio State standards a C game with by Ohio State standards in the last dozen years, a D team by their standards, and Penn State still couldn't get close to beating them, and that's bad. That's pretty pathetic. I mean, it was
no no Henderson, no Egbuka, and they separated from Penn State, right? It wasn't much, but once they got a little margin, like you're watching it in the press box and you're watching Penn State's offense just really, really just kind of run in place. They couldn't do anything and
run in place.
Sad.
Run in place.
It was kind of sad, and I just. I mean, there's really it falls on the offensive coaches, it falls on the players, but Dave, it was the goldenest of golden opportunities, and they just squandered it. I feel bad for the defensive players. I know they gave up some yards to Harrison, but Dave, I wanted to ask you. I think I think they got super frustrated. The defense. James is talking about being a one possession game. We were in it. We were in it. Not going to pull Aller. And then he goes for it on 4th and 4 halfway through the fourth quarter in a one possession game when the offense is struggling that badly. Instead of trying to pin Ohio State,
it was exactly the kind of thing he's always done. That desperation move that makes you look desperate. It connotes to the rest of the team, hey, we're going to need something crazy to win this game.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the wrong message to send to your own guys.
Yeah.
I mean, this offense is not built for quick strikes. It's not built for 4th and 4. It's not built for much of anything. But it has to adopt an Iowa mentality, like a decent year Iowa mentality. And I don't even think, this Iowa offense.
That's a good way to put it.
It has to adopt a good year Iowa offense mentality, which means tight ends, control the ball, move the sticks, hopefully run the ball, short passing, and do what you can in a phone booth just to shorten the game, and then let your defense win it if you can. Get close. And the archetype of that was the 2016 Iowa team against Michigan. And if they can do that,
right,
and they have the same kind of defense, they have a great defense. The only thing they probably didn't do all that well was locate Harrison on every play and absolutely take him away. I would have bracketed Harrison much more often, had a safety over the top, and just say, look, we might be beaten, but Julian Fleming's going to have to beat us. Cade Stover's going to have to beat us, and he might have. But just not give him Harrison, give it to him. And you can't cover him one-on-one. I think they did it a little too often, but otherwise, a great plan by Manny Diaz and a great execution of that plan by the defense. You have to let your defense try to win games because they don't have the offense to go for it on 4th and 4. They don't have the offense to do stupid things like the flea flicker into the short side. Yeah. What are you doing? This super genius Wile E. Coyote play calling, and it wouldn't be what Kirk. We make fun of Kirk Ferentz now, but we forget about him 3 and 5 and 7 years ago when they pulled off. You remember the time they went to the Big Ten championship game a couple of years ago, got mashed by Michigan, but they were there. That's how they did it.
Yeah,
and. I if you remember that 2016 game, which was a 14-13 win for Iowa against the number 2 ranked Michigan team, which was looked at as just as infallible, unapproachable as this Michigan team. That's what they have to try to do because that's all they got. They don't have the ammo to do anything else.
Yeah, and so I just it's the more I try not to think a lot about that game in Columbus on Saturday. But it just keeps creeping into the back of my head that
I've never seen you. I thought it was you like real competition.
Yeah.
You like great games.
Yeah.
You love covering great games. And the real takeaway from your attitude after that game was how just deflated you were about what a dud of a game it was.
It was deflating. Yeah. It was futile. It was almost futile. Watching, they just couldn't do anything on offense. The adjustments weren't there. They never got the young quarterback comfortable at all. And then Dave, the capper for me was, I'm sorry, those wide receivers. If you want to put some of the blame on Drew Aller, you can, because some of it was his. But those wide receivers are not going to help him against a good defense. And I could see why a young quarterback would get rattled because there's nowhere to throw the ball.
What do you do?
And that to me is unless there's a reversal of fortune that we don't see coming. That is going to be really that's going to be like what I'm going to remember about this. I'm not going to remember this great defense. I'm going to remember they had the whole off season to try and patchwork something in the receiver group. And they just don't have any options to threaten a decent defense. They couldn't do it against Iowa, and they couldn't do it against Ohio State. And it's just there have been less talented Penn State teams, I thought, on offense fight harder to stay in a game against Ohio State than this one did, and that also kind of bothered me a little bit. I wasn't wild about the effort, quite frankly, on offense.
Yeah, and something we haven't really talked about, but their interior line's getting the crap beat out of them again. I mean, we don't have to name names here, but center guard is not looking all that great, and they got blown up inside, and that's another thing Aller's got to deal with. And he had a bad day. Let's not sugarcoat it.
Right.
He threw some passes where they weren't even close to the receiver, little out routes, 5-6 yard out routes that were there, and he just missed them badly. But he's dealing with a lot of detriments that over time give you a lack of confidence.
Yes.
Every football team is about trust and finding your limits and dealing with your limits. That's what they call complementary football.
Yeah.
And in order for the defense to trust the offense and vice versa, everyone has to know their limits and play to their limits. A guy we both know, Steve Bench, father of Stephen Bench, who used to be a Penn State quarterback. He was an offensive line coach for a long time, and he had situations in high school state championships games in Georgia where they won the game where they were outmatched at scrimmage. And what he told his offensive linemen there is, all I want you to do is lose slowly.
Yeah.
You're going to lose because these guys are better than you are.
Right.
But just make it an effort for them to get through. You just need a little bit of time. And there is value to that. There are going to be matchups against great teams like Michigan that you're just going to lose. But you have to mitigate your liabilities, not expect too much, but not do crazy things. About the only good thing that you can say about this game is they didn't make a crazy, a horrible turnover that went the other way. And they almost got one that went the other way that could have actually changed the game. Now, if they lead 10-3 instead of trail 10-3 at that point, do you give them a shot to win?
Yes, I do. I still think though that Ohio State had figured out that if they were up 10, I know if they were up 10-3, they might even gotten more predictable and less aggressive. Dave, do you think though? I'm thinking about this. Do you think Penn State, James talking about the identity, like protect the football, yada yada? Do you think that he and Yurcich have coached some of the aggression out of Drew Aller in terms of throwing the ball into tight windows? Because at some point in a close game on the road,
you got to take a shot.
You're gonna have to try and. I mean, McCord took some chances against Penn State's defense. I know he had Marvin, but I mean he threw some balls that were a split second away from being tragic for that offense. I just feel like Drew has been coached that if it's not wide open, either throw it away, hold on to the ball till it is wide open, and there's no one getting open. I just think that he is now in a position where he's worried more about throwing an interception than trying to make a play, and I don't think that's good either.
And there were opportunities to do that, but I think only really with the tight ends. So do it. A tight end streak, 15 or 20 yards in between the hashes. Steel Chambers spent the second and third quarters cheating into the box to put a seventh or eighth man into the box after early on we saw a 20-yard run and then a 15-yard run by Nick Singleton in 6-man boxes.
Yeah.
If you watch the box, that's what the quarterback is watching. Of course, defenses try to camouflage it and sucker you into a running play when they're going to run an extra guy in there. But they had it going. They had a possible play action pass right down the middle going because Steel Chambers was cheating in there over and over and over right at the snap. You get him going forward, you go over the top of him. And that's all they have because their wideouts cannot get open against anybody. That was a losing game, even without Denzel Burke. It didn't matter. They had like 7 different guys who could cover all of Penn State's wideouts. It wasn't even a competition. So I'm not saying just try
Right.
a deep ball willy-nilly.
No.
But strategically with a play action, that is the play. And they could have moved the sticks and kept moving the sticks and been annoying to Ohio State that way, and they didn't even try it.
Yeah. Before we talk very briefly about Indiana, because let's face it, it's just I didn't really realize it because I was kind of focused just on this game, trying to get back into Pennsylvania. But I had no idea that Maryland, who I had thought might be a little frisky in a couple of weeks, lost at home to Illinois.
You didn't know that? Yeah.
27-24.
They're like cats.
They have a bit of a crisis at offensive coordinator now.
You don't know about the day. I mean, that was the same day as the Massachusetts game here, and they're like house cats in cold rain.
Yeah.
They don't like playing in it, and they don't like cold weather. They're 2-6 in the last two Novembers, I think it is. And so it's getting to the time of year where if you get them in cold, damp weather, they don't like to play in that. They'd rather be 70 degrees and sunshine. So they'll probably be hell this week. Who do they have? They're in Chicago. So, yeah, I mean, they can still beat this team, though. They can beat Penn State, especially if they get a fast track. And they have a chance to do it because they got a lot of athletes. They're the same Maryland team they've always been, with a better defense. Their defense is better than it has been. They've got some guys who run around and hit. They're kind of a poor man's version of Penn State, really, except they got a quarterback who's the opposite of Drew Aller. He just flings it all over the place, and they have better wideouts for sure, including Caden Prather, a guy that Taylor Stubblefield was not able to recruit because the Penn State NIL situation was in such chaos, and Maryland came up with the money and Penn State didn't have it ready. I mean, that's what that whole story was about. As part of what Stubblefield got blamed for. And by the way, him getting fired in a huff, in a tizzy fit last January, before it looked kind of rash. Now it looks foolhardy, is what I wrote, doesn't it?
I just I don't know if it was just that one moment, but I think that might have been the final moment for.
It was a lack of recruiting, allegedly, and he didn't recruit all that well. I'll tell you what he did. His guys caught the ball. Yeah. His guys got some separation more times than not. They learned how to run routes and catch the ball. These guys are just running around like it's recess in third grade.
At least you didn't say like fourth grade recess.
What did you do in recess? We did some crazy things in recess.
Dodgeball, kickball, but yeah, a lot of running around.
You remember Red Rover?
Energy.
You remember Red Rover? And that was a violent game. You basically ran as fast as you could and tried to run through arms that people holding hands like that. There could be girls, there could be guys. You just run through it and rip their arms off. The jungle gyms. You remember the jungle gyms?
Oh, yeah.
Steel aluminum pipes.
Lawsuits waiting to happen. Waiting to happen. We didn't know it.
If you fell off, you fell on gravel.
Man, I could have made a lot of money when I was a kid if what my 59-year-old self knew then. I could have made a lot of money for my family if I just because my head it's so big. I really wouldn't have got hurt, but I would have got concussed.
Oh, you're talking about a settlement. Okay.
Yeah, settlement. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't do settlements back then, Bob. Sorry.
You
play at your own risk. At your own risk on those playgrounds.
There weren't ambulance chases back there. Come on.
We played a lot of football at Homedale Elementary. And then we came in, and it was a mud pit we played through January. It didn't matter. And you came in with giant slathering, hipfuls of mud. It's flaking off during
a lot like your current dog Kaiser, right?
Yes,
coming in, not caring.
That's why we have the mud room. That's what it's called.
Yeah. Do you before we get to we're going to get to the fight and Phils a little bit. Just real quick, Dave. Is there anything rattling through that big brain of yours about this game on Saturday. Is there anything you'd like to see? Do you have an idea of what the outcome's going to be, or is it just going to be typical
It's like the
Penn State?
Northwestern game. I mean, you touched on it. It's like the Northwestern game in that everything is open. The Indiana secondary is all beat up now. They lost a couple of maybe two safeties, probably just one, but maybe two. And if you're going to try stuff out and try to get Drew Eller some confidence downfield, this is the worst team in the Big Ten right now. Tom Allen, God bless him, did a
This is
great
the last
job
thing,
for a
Dave.
little while.
I think it's
National Coach of the Year during the COVID year in 2020. But he had Michael Penix.
yeah,
Kalen DeBoer was his OC.
yeah,
And then DeBoer goes off to Washington and says, "Hey, Mike, you want to come with me?" And now they're both in Seattle, and they're
like,
undefeated.
yeah,
And Tom Allen's sitting there with these ham and eggers at quarterback. He's got nothing but Jalen Lucas to do on offense, Cam Camper, and that's it. I mean, they just don't have an offense. They could probably be out there 8 quarters and score 3 field goals against Penn State. So this is the time I would like to see. It's going to be beautiful weather too. Fast
yeah.
track,
I saw that.
75 degrees. So go ahead and take some shots, man. Let him oil him up. See how many times. Really let those wideouts go and see if they can get any separation at all. Throw deep slants, throw skinny posts, throw everything. What do you got to lose? You can't. You can't possibly lose to this team, and that's also the way to get them juiced up.
Yeah,
Because if you try to play station to station football in this game, they're going to fall asleep. Noon start, and they think they're going to win already. But I don't care. Cut it loose. Say, okay, we're going to cut it loose now. It's a way to get everyone jacked up a little bit, because the only way you can get jacked up for Indiana is that they have lost 20 of 22 conference games. They are 2-5, 0-4. None of their Big Ten games have been remotely close. They're averaging a loss of 38-10 in their Big Ten games. They're not good. They are legitimately the worst team in this conference. Cut it loose and let's see if the offense can get better and gain a little confidence in this game. Because Maryland the week after is not the time to screw around. That is a dangerous team on the road. And I know everyone says they always beat Maryland. Hey, this offense against that team right now, especially if the weather's good, that can be a dangerous situation. This team is not a walkover against Maryland by any means.
All right. Now, changing sports here on the Blue White Breakdown.
I don't even know if I want to do this.
Come on, you know you want to.
I told Bob, I really am not valid. I'm not worthy of commenting on this because I knew they were going to lose.
Talking about the Phillies.
Yes, after Nola, and by the way, let Nola walk. I knew he would gag that up on Game 6 because he had a great postseason up until now. I know, but he's like throws 80 pitches and I'm throwing 80 pitches. I cannot stand this latest trend of once a guy gets you into the 5th, then you start emptying the bullpen. Do you watch any baseball anymore?
I do. I'm a Texas Rangers fan, Dave. You know that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, good for you, because I hated the Astros. I've got family in Dallas and Fort Worth, and they're losing their minds. And we were going to have a really fun time here with this World Series, and now it's over. I think Rob Thompson is just a typical career baseball dope, one of those guys who just does whatever his card says, and sometimes it can be goofy stuff. He makes goofy decisions, but particularly the Ranger Suarez taking him out in Game 4, I thought was just awful. He had more to give, and was that Game 3, Game 4? I can't remember. He had more to
Game 3.
Game 3. He had more to give in that game, and that got the ball rolling in the wrong direction. And he always does that. He goes to this bullpen way too early, and frankly, who is their closer? That's what I said in the mailbag three weeks ago. Who's their closer? Craig Kimbrell? No, he's done. And I think you've watched enough of the Braves in the old days. It was like he's the shell of the pitcher he used to be. We never liked him anyway because he was a Brave. I remember guys behind home plate one game at the bank. They were like a group of drunk guys right behind home plate, and when he'd get ready to pitch, they all got up and did this. I didn't want him to be a Philly. Anyway, they depend way too much on home runs. They don't play small ball well. They're a little sloppy on defense, except for Stott. Trey Turner had a bad fielding series. All of the top 5 had a bad game 7. And if they can't hit home runs, once the Diamondbacks got into their bullpen, man, they are terrific. They are lights out. They're a better bullpen than the Phillies. And Rob Thompson acted like the bullpen was his strength. Well, it's hot and cold. It's hot and cold. And eventually you're going to get to a guy in Kimbrel or Dominguez or somebody who's going to give up a big tater. And I just thought this team was built around starting pitching and hitting home runs and not a lot else, and probably got the demise they deserve. But they're such a fun team to watch because they have such a spirit about them. So it's really sad. It's a very sad day.
All right. Well, I do agree. As somebody, I know a lot of Phillies fans, and I will say though that the atmosphere that has been created in Philadelphia for those games, the way that team feeds off of it, and when they do get hot, Dave, it really doesn't matter who's pitching, but you just can't always maintain, I guess, that. And that's the beauty of Game 7 is once things don't go your way in Game 7. Literally anything can happen, and I did think that I didn't realize how good the Diamondbacks bullpen was.
Yeah, they basically got it from everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
that bullpen didn't exist in August. They got everyone at the trade
Yeah.
deadline. It was a very interesting
Yeah.
philosophy that a lot of people are probably going to copy now. Is
Yeah.
just spend the trade deadline on bullpen guys. And
I thought it was a very gutsy effort by Merrill Kelly to get them through Game 6 to create doubt for Game 7. And I do think the Diamondbacks are sitting on a lot of young talent that I don't know that this was going to be a fluky year. I think that Brandon Pfaadt is going to be an ace for them, and they have a lot of talent that we have. They're like the Orioles in a sense that their best days probably were not this year. They're probably going to be in the next 3 to 5 years, and I think they're going to be heard from.
As Kurt Gowdy used to say, their future's still ahead of them.
All right, Dave,
as it always is, Kurt.
As we hit the 28-minute mark, we're hoping for good, sunny weather on Saturday at Beaver Stadium. Penn State, it's a CBS game, so who knows who's calling it, but Penn
State. Is it Vern?
At noon.
Is Vern going to be here?
I think Vern probably has veto power at this part of his life.
Jack
Nicklaus making the trip to State College.
Yeah. They don't have a heck of a lot. They've got all sorts of quarterback issues. They've been playing a kid named Brendan Sorsby, and they fired their offensive coordinator a couple weeks ago, Walt Bell, 3 weeks ago, and they brought in the former Temple coach and Northern Illinois coach. You know about him. And Temple fans, this is the guy that Temple hired after Manny Diaz walked after a week and a half. And they're just a mess. I mean, Tom Allen had this thing taped together with string and baling wire, and it's all come apart. And the whole problem is he's got a $20 million buyout at Indiana. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. So it's like they can't fire him, but who would they hire anyway? I don't know. I mean, it's and that buyout's in effect through next season before it finally drops down to 8. So their hands are totally tied. Yeah, they signed him to that in early 2021. The new athletic director who's still there. So it's his problem.
That is
basketball season starting. They don't care. They're the reverse doppelganger of Penn State. I've always said that. Indiana football is Penn State basketball. So.
All right. That's it, Davo. I'll see you up at Beaver Stadium in a couple days.
Did you do your prediction?
I did. No, I didn't. I didn't give it out. I don't know if Penn State fans care. I picked 38-3. I honestly don't think they care.
I don't think they do either. See you up there.